This is my crack at my first codebook. I'm a second year sports and exercise analytics master's program student. And here we go. Okay, so I made this codebook. This codebook describes the data set that I will be using to essentially explore the home court advantage and measure schedule strength within the National Basketball Association. My codebook is going to be in R Markdown, so I'm going to show you guys that right now. Okay, so like I said, I want to evaluate the impact of schedule stress in the NBA, schedule stress, schedule strength. I'm not too sure what the name is going to be, but essentially it's going to be a bunch of stuff that looks at two things, right? So we're going to look at performance, in-game performance. So we need a lot of measures that are going to assess team performance within the NBA. So for that, we need to see, okay, what game are we talking about? When was that game played? Where was the game played? Who's the home team? Who's the opponent? How many points scored? These are a bunch of classic statistics that you could find on NBA.com, and that is going to be included in my analysis for this semester. And that is also going to be combined with some betting metrics. So where you see opening odds, opening spread, opening total, closing spread, closing total, the money line, those are all betting metrics that I also have a real interest in, just because some of the betting markets, I think we can learn a lot from them, just because they use some extraneous factors that don't necessarily just look at opponent skill or team skill into their models. They also use things like travel, like whether or not a team plays better when they're on 1 day of rest versus 2 days of rest. This team does particularly well against East Coast teams. So things that happen and patterns that get picked up, and I think the betting markets are very interesting for that reason. So I'm going to be including some of those metrics. So you can see this is a pretty cool table that involves, or it outlines, whether or not each metric, each variable here is a character, a numeric, or a date. And then it gives you some simple summary descriptions. It gives you an actual description in layman's terms of what the measure means. And then it tells you all the way at the bottom here, if you scroll back up to the top, how many valid values I have and how many missing values I have. And then I also mentioned some of the schedule metrics. So I'm going to be using things like days since the last game. Did the team travel? What was the altitude of the game? Team rest days. So was there 1 day of rest, 2 days of rest, 3 games in 4 days, things like that. So that way I can really try to bring some insight on how the schedule and how the strength of the schedule affects in-game performance. And the reason why I want to do this is because a man by the name of Michael Lopez has done a lot of work in the National Football League, and he kind of came out with this equation that suggests that wins is nothing more than an equation. Nothing more. It's not that simple, but it's essentially an equation that says skill plus observable league factors and unobservable league factors is what is responsible for how many wins a team will get. And this codebook, this data set, and then the subsequent analysis is essentially going to look at observable league factors. So we want to see how many things we can pull via publicly available data sets, or things that we see after games are played and even before games are played via the betting markets, and how can we combine these variables to potentially make a model and a very, very insightful product that teams will pay a heap ton of money for to be able to use for their advantage. So that's my codebook.